excuse me, I'm having a birthday and my 2 kids are dead. Do you think it's really going to be a great day?
It's not a great day.
It's not a great day. Like, Merry Christmas. And I'm like, how about Merry Christmas? I know today is probably really hard. Yes. I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. Today we're joined by fellow sad mom Nohea, and she is mama to Noah and Kalea. So before we get into all the shitty stuff, let's talk about the kids. So if you want to share a little bit about them.
I'd love to. Kalea was born March 17th, 2012. She was our St. Patrick's Day baby. And it's funny because her due date was March 17th, the entire pregnancy. And so when I went into labor that morning, I was like, this can't be. Like, this isn't real. Sure enough, she was born March 17th, and I knew, I was like, she's definitely my daughter. She's going to be punctual. This is going to be her. She's going to be like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And that was so much her personality. But she's also had like a little spunk to her and was a little sass. She loved doing jokes and pranks. Total tomboy, like wore superhero things, never wanted to wear a dress, was into skateboarding and surfing and sports and just...
Super cool girl.
Yeah, she was totally super cool girl and didn't care that, you know, everyone else, all the other girls were showing up in dresses on their little recitals or at picture day. She was like, I want to wear my, you know, Star Wars shirt and my board shorts. I'm like, perfect. Then our son Noah was born a little less than 2 years after his sister. So January 30th, 2014. And he is my husband to a T. I mean, he was the sweetest kid. Nothing bothered him. He went with the flow. Was just like, it's okay. Like, he never, whatever we said we were doing, he's like, sure. And I think, and so Kalea and Noah were so close. They were like best friends. They played together all the time.
And how far apart in age were they?
About 22 months.
Okay.
So about 22 months. And it's funny because, you know, whenever you have siblings, there's fighting, there's, you know, arguing over things. And my husband and I, we look back and we're like, they like really never fought. Like, there was a few times where you'd overhear them being like, no, I want to do this, but I want to do this. And it was usually Noah being like, okay, fine. Well, we can do this, and then can we do that? And Kalea would be like, okay. Like, it was, we'll do your thing first, Kalea, and then can we do this? And it was always, sure.
And they share a room.
They shared a room.
So no issues with that?
No, there was never an issue. When Noah was about a year and a half, he would not go to sleep. He was in his crib screaming, crying, and Kalea was in her bed across the room. And I was like, no, we have to go to sleep. And I was like, what's in? And he was just crying and reaching out. And I was like, do you want to sleep with sister? And he was like, so I like put him in his bed with his sister. Mm-hmm. And for a while, they shared a bed. They would just go to sleep together. They would share a bed. And then eventually, when they were about 5.5 and 3.5, we got bunk beds, and Kalea got the top bunk. But we would still sometimes find them together in bed.
So always like
they were always super close. And then when they were diagnosed, it even formed, I think, even a stronger bond than we could have imagined when they were diagnosed with cancer.
Tell me about what that was like. Yeah.
So in June, it was actually Memorial Day weekend when our daughter started having, she like woke up one morning and she vomited, but then she felt fine. We're like, are you sure you feel fine? Like, she ate her breakfast, she felt fine. We're like, okay, no big deal. Then it happened like the next morning. And then that week, she started like after school. It was only half day kindergarten, so she'd be picked up by 11:15. Yeah. And she was like ready for a nap. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is strange. This is not her at all. She was ready usually to go to the park, like keep playing, play dates, you know? And then she started having headaches. And so we went to the ER one afternoon. And they said, it's probably a virus, no big deal. We're like, okay. They're like, follow up with your pediatrician. So we went to the pediatrician, and she said, it probably is nothing, but I do want you to see a neurologist. So we went that week to the neurologist. She ordered an MRI, and it was supposed to happen that Saturday. Friday night comes. She's in so much pain. Her head's hurting so bad. So I take her back to the ER, to our local hospital, and they end up doing an MRI that night instead. And that's when, I'll never forget it. That was with my mom, actually, because Duncan stayed home with Noah. And the doctor kind of came in and said, I'm so sorry, but we found there's a mass in the back of her head. We're transferring you to Children's Hospital right now. We're in touch with the surgeon, neurosurgeon there, and the oncology floor. You'll be transferred to the oncology floor because we need to figure out what it is. So that was June 8th, that date. So it was pretty quick. We were lucky that between symptoms and diagnosis, it was quick because I know not every family has that experience. So it was really quick. So that was now, we get transferred in the early hours of now, it's Saturday morning.
And how old was she? Like
she was 6 at the time, yeah.
Okay.
So it was June. She had turned 6 in March. It's now June,
Okay.
beginning of June. She was in kindergarten, and by that Monday, we were going into surgery to remove it.
Wow.
The neurosurgeon was amazing. We were at Children's Hospital in Long Beach. And so she developed after surgery, they had told us it was part of one of the possible side effects, a thing called posterior fossa syndrome. They don't really know why it happens, but it's when they have do brain surgery in that part of the brain, and when they're removing the tumor, they're not 100% sure exactly what happened. Some kids get it, some kids don't. There's no like, oh, there was a complication in surgery and that's what causes it. They don't really know who's going to have it or not when they wake up.
Okay.
And so what happened with our daughter is she couldn't speak and she had difficulty walking. And so we were still there in the hospital recovering with that, doing it like rehab, speech therapist, PT, OT every day. Our son was in preschool. My husband would go home every day, be with our son, take him to preschool. After preschool, drive up to the hospital. That was kind of the schedule. And then I remember on 2 different occasions, one was he was at his friend's house, and another one he was at school. He started crying and having a bad headache. And so we were like, this can't be it, right? You know, and we're like, his whole world's turned upside down. Maybe he's just mimicking his sisters. So my husband took him to the pediatrician, and she said he might be mimicking his sister, the symptoms. But I'm noticing when he walks, he leans a little bit. So I want you to go see the neurologist. I'm going to put in the order for that. So right after that appointment, my husband drives up to the hospital to hang out with us. And the oncologist was making his rounds. And so he was in the room with our daughter, and we told him our son's symptoms. And so he did a quick examination, and he said, I want you to go down to the ER. I want them to do an MRI. I'm going to order an MRI, and I want you to go down there.
And how old is Noah?
Noah is now 4. And so I just remember walking. My mom was there at the hospital. We left. She stayed with my mom, and my stepdad stayed with Kalea in the room. And my husband and I walked down to the ER with our son. And my husband just kept saying, like, it can't be the same thing, right? Like, what if it's the same thing? What if it's medulloblastoma, which is what we had found out our daughter had. And I was like, no, it can't be. And in my head, I'm thinking, what if it's some other like progressive neurological thing? I'm thinking, what if it's something else? So we go down there. I go into the MRI room with him, and you know, you can hold their feet because the rest of their body, they're scanning the brain. You know, I'm comforting him, and he's 4, and he's, you know, kind of scared because it's this loud machine. But they were able to get the pictures, you know, and we go back into our little ER bed with the curtain around it. And then the doctor came in shortly after, and he said, again, another ER doctor comes in and said, I'm so sorry, but there's a mass in the same spot that his sister had one. It's 5.5 centimeters. It's 5 centimeters. Hers was 3.5. So his was actually larger. And we're like, there's no way. And he's like, we're calling the neurosurgeon, your neurosurgeon, to let him know. And then that was 13 days after we were told our daughter had a brain tumor. Exactly 13 days.
And she's still in the hospital.
She's in the hospital. We haven't gone home yet. We're still. So now, and then that Monday, exactly 2 weeks after our daughter had surgery, the same surgeon came in and removed the tumor from our son.
How do you explain this to a 4-year-old and 6-year-old? Like,
I think at some point we used the term cancer, but they didn't really know what it was. And we just explained it like, you have a boo-boo. You know, they understand that term.
Yes.
A little owie inside your brain. And they have to do surgery to remove it. And then after surgery, we're going to have to be in the hospital, in and out of the hospital. And you're going to have to get some medicine. And there's going to be different procedures. But we're going to be together, and mommy's going to always be here. And I think at that age, they trust their parents. They whatever they say, they're like, okay, like everything's going to be fine, you know? And so they just went along with it. And so our son so our daughter luckily quickly regained speech and mobility. It still affected. You could tell that her coordination was still off and things like that. But our son also had posterior fossa, but another symptom of posterior fossa is extreme labile moods, like mood swings.
Okay.
And Noah going from the easygoing, happiest-go-lucky kid, that was one of the biggest things I was scared of. Like after seeing our daughter go through surgery and certain things changing with her, I just remember telling my husband, this may be like when they took him to do the surgery and they took him back there, thinking this may be the last time we know our little Noah as Noah. Like he may be completely different after this. And so when he came out, he had posterior fossa, but it always happened when he woke up from a nap. He would start screaming like, I want mommy, but in like an angry way. And then as soon as I would get close to him, he would start kicking and hitting me and say, go away, I don't want you. And then I'd go away and then he'd be like, I want mommy. And so it lasted through the hospitalization. We finally were eventually discharged just before July 3rd. We all got to come home. Kalea got to come home a few days, like a little bit before that. She was already home.
So you were there for about 3 weeks?
She was there for about 3 weeks to almost a month.
Okay.
Because June 8th till July 3rd.
Right.
The doctor we got Noah out earlier because he didn't need as extensive rehab.
Okay.
And he did really well. So we got home because that was a big thing. Like we're gonna make it home to 4th of July. Our street's having a block party, and even though Noah was still recovering and not feeling great, like all the neighborhood kids came over, and I remember having them. They were playing in the backyard in our garage. We had stuff set up. And then we ended up transferring care to Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
Okay. So you're at Long Beach.
Yeah. And then we went to
LA.
Yeah.
Okay.
They just have a much larger neuro-oncology. Specifically, they have a neuro-oncology program. Instead of a straight pediatric oncology, it's a neuro-oncology program with all the doctors they have. And we met with the team before we decided to make the change. We met with the radiation doctor, all of that. And so we felt comfortable. We wanted to go up there. They ended up, because of their ages, Noah was still 4 and Kalea was 6. They actually had different treatment protocols, which like put in a whole nother wrench. We were like, what the heck? What do you mean different protocols? So Kalea did the standard of care with 30 days of radiation followed by 9 rounds of chemotherapy. Okay. So hers was a lot more. Radiation's obviously outpatient. You don't have to stay overnight. Noah's was, we're going to do 3 rounds of really high dose chemotherapy. It's going to be really intense. Sometimes kids don't even get to leave the hospital before they start the next round. Okay. We were luckily able to, because he was a little bit older, like he was 4. We got to usually come home for a couple days, then get readmitted with a fever. It's just the body's reaction. So he'd get a fever, be admitted for about a week, come home for another maybe week, and then we'd go back and start round 2. At that point, after 3 rounds, you were randomized to one of 2 groups. It was a protocol that they were still doing.
And were they able to be with each other in the hospital?
Luckily, yes. So, this was the routine. Kalea, I would go down there, I'd spend the night, and then I'd go down to radiation to meet my husband and daughter. Because she was so young and the radiation, you can't move. They would put her under sedation. Oh. So I would be with her when they sedated her. That was one thing I always promised the kids, like, Mommy will be here when you go under sedation. I will be here when you wake up. And then she would go under, and then I would stay with her until she woke up. My mom would come, actually. She was able to get another parent pass, luckily. Okay. So she could get there earlier before our visiting hours and stay with Kalea in her room. And after we were done, we would all go up and we would hang out in the hospital all day with Noah. So then he did those 3 rounds, and then he was randomized to 3 rounds of a high-dose stem cell round where he was going to get his stem cells transplanted back into him, because they said the chemo was so strong that there's not really a safe way for him to recover unless we gave the stem cells back. Because they're like, in a timely manner, your bone marrow wouldn't recover fast enough. So they'd have to give him his stem cells back. So we did 3 rounds of that, and then he was finished. And Kalea was still doing she finished her radiation, 30 days of radiation, and was getting her chemotherapy, which was usually just like 1 night or 2 nights in the hospital. Every now and then she'd get a fever and we'd have to go back. So now we're in 2019 eventually. So Noah's in remission starting January of 2009. And then Kalea was still getting her chemotherapy. She finished around August of that same year.
He had just turned 5.
He turned 5. We had
Okay.
his birthday. I remember he loved trains. And so for his birthday, he had finished treatment. We were there, though, for clinic and for labs and all that stuff. And Kalea, I think, still had to, maybe was going to get a transfusion. But for his birthday, I remember my mom was with me. I'm so grateful for all the help she provided, because Duncan was now back at work at this point, too. Noah and I, we took the train from the CHLA to Elvira Street to Union Square because he loved trains.
Yeah.
And even though it wasn't like a real train,
It's a train.
it was a train for him.
Yeah.
We called it a train, and
Yeah.
we were a train. It was underground, so you couldn't really see anything, but he rode the train, and we had lunch at Elvira Street. He wanted me to pack lunch. So we packed lunch, ate on a picnic bench, jumped back on, made it back in time for Kalea to finish the transfusion, and we could all go home together. It was just like a lot of moving pieces of trying to do special things for both of them. And Kalea was so upset she missed that part of her birthday. But we celebrated after, and we had a party at our house that weekend or the weekend before. And they got really used to just accepting that, like, our schedules are a little different. We might be in the hospital for holidays, which we were that first year. Every Halloween, Noah was in the hospital. Thanksgiving, we were in the hospital. And Christmas, we were in the hospital.
Yeah. And did they go to school during that time?
So that time, no, because we were like, there was Noah was in the hospital 2 to 3 weeks out of every month. And his immune system was so bad. And Kalea, too. So actually, they both went back in April, because after the stem cell rounds, there had to be 100 days where Noah wasn't around a lot of people, and school at that age, it's just full of germs. So we waited till April. He went back to his preschool. Kalea would be first grade, went back half day first grade. That's what she kind of was comfortable with. And I think we were, comfortable with. And then we had a repeat first grade. So that was a change, because it's like the people she was in kindergarten with and she knew was no longer, she's going to be with this whole new class. But she made great friends. None of us regret that decision.
Good.
She was really excited. We turned it when we told her that we think that maybe you should, do first grade again. She was upset. And then we told her all of the positive things. Like, you're going to have the same teacher that you had at the end of first grade. You get to do all these fun, all the fun activities that you missed out in first grade. You get to do it again. And so then she was like, we sold her on the idea. And she's like, okay. And then and then she ended up meeting her best friend in first grade. They had the same exact birthday, just 1 year apart. They were St. Patrick's Day twins, and it was the best thing. Yeah. So fast forward, we had 2 months in the fall where both kids were cancer-free.
Okay.
And we were like 2 months. Then every 3 months they had to
That's like at the start of first grade.
Start of first grade. And then now Noah's in kindergarten at this point. And they had to get MRIs every 3 months to make sure that everything's clear and everything. And that's when we got the call that Noah had relapsed. So we had 2 months of like no chemo, no radiation, nothing. So he relapsed. He had to get radiation. At this point, they're like, we're going to have to do radiation. We ended up doing radiation down in San Diego, because they offered proton therapy, which is different than the photon therapy at CHLA. It's just different. It's showing that there's less damage to other parts of the brain that don't need to necessarily be hit.
Okay.
There was less side effects Noah had than Kalea had. So then we do that. Luckily, it was during the holidays. So my husband being a teacher, the week of Thanksgiving, we were down in San Diego together. The week of Christmas, the 2 weeks we were together. And the weeks that he was working and Kalea was in school, Noah and I would wake up Monday morning at like 5 a.m., drive down to San Diego, spend the night, a couple nights, get a few days of radiation, drive back up on Wednesday. We always got back in time for Kalea's early dismissal so we could pick her up at like 1:30, be home midweek for one night, and then go back Thursday morning, 5 a.m., get radiation Thursday, Friday, and then drive up Friday right after radiation so we could also be home in time to pick up Kalea. So it was a lot. We had amazing support from friends and family and the community. There were some families that just paid for our housing down there in San Diego, so we didn't have to worry about that. And so then it's now May 2020. We all know what happened March 2020.
Yes.
Kalea relapses. So then they were like, we essentially are reversing treatment. She's going to have a couple rounds of harsh chemo inpatient a lot. And then we're going to do the stem cell, 1 round of stem cell. And it's going to be stronger than what Noah did because his was broken up into like 3 parts, but she'll get 1.
And so so you found out she relapsed in May, and was Noah still
Noah
in treatment?
was in getting chemotherapy every 2 weeks, these infusions. They were very mild. He was doing fine. He was back in school. The way that they worked, they weren't like chemotherapy. They worked differently, the infusions that he was getting.
Okay.
They essentially, one of them, for instance, cut off blood supply so that like the cancer couldn't grow because it needs a blood supply, like some sort of source. So that's like how one of them worked. And that was going to happen for a year. And he was also taking oral chemotherapy. And they're like, Kalea is going to have to do that same regimen once she finishes these rounds as well. So we did that. Fast forward again. Noah finishes his maintenance chemo in January again. Kalea is still in her 1 year of kind of like maintenance treatment or, getting that, taking oral chemo. It's now 2021. She like, it comes back. They see it on a scan. And at that point they said, there's options to slow it down, but there's not really, it's not good. There's not really a cure that we're going for at this point. And I kind of knew, being a nurse practitioner and just being in the field, like, when it came back the first time, I thought, okay, we did the standard protocol. Like for her, I was like, this isn't good if we've already done the standard protocol. But our doctor was like, no, we're going for a cure the second time around. And then the third time around, it was no. Tell us what your wishes are, and we will, any trials that come up, we will, if anything that they can qualify for, we will definitely let you know. And then in September, that same year, Noah, it came back in Noah as well. And she had told us reasonably a year probably would be that we would have left with our kids.
Oh my God.
So our goal was, okay, if something comes up, a trial that we're comfortable with, we'd do it. But we were kind of already planning, like, we're going to make this the best year ever and try to we want the kids to have great experiences. And so that's what we did. And that summer, we finally made it back. So I have family in Hawaii. My dad's from Hawaii. But we made it finally back to Disney Aulani, and the kids had the best time. And all my family came, like, that live here. My brother, my sister, their families, they all came. And we did little things like that. Our neighbors were amazing. So Make-A-Wish, we had applied for Make-A-Wish. And when they first were diagnosed, and like, we never got really anything, like, they just, I think COVID put a wrench in part of it. When they were in treatment, we were like, well, we can't travel right now. So it kind of got pushed back. And Kalea decided she wanted her special loft place for just her friends, her brother, built in the garage. And so Make-A-Wish said, well, we'll provide all the stuff that can go in it, or we'll build it, but we can't do both. So our neighbors stepped up. They built the loft. We have a contractor here. They built the stairs to go up. They put in this portable AC unit, and then Make-A-Wish was amazing. They sent all of the stuff. I mean, there was refrigerators, there was comfy chairs, there was a cool TV. They got the PS5 video game set. It's like their special place, and that they loved. So for about a year, they had it.
Did you explain to the kids what was happening? Okay.
No.
Yeah.
It's hard because they never asked, first off. And they knew, that cancer was serious. And so what I started doing, though, when Kalea relapsed that second time, and we were told there's not really a cure, we're not at this point, I started talking about, even though we weren't religious and didn't go to church, I started talking about more about heaven. And they had lost their grandpa, my dad. So I had explained to them when he died, his body is not with us, but his spirit is still around us. Like, he can see us, and he is with us. We, the ones that are here on earth, we are the ones that are sad because we don't get to see him, but he's always around us. He's with us. And I'm like, there's, some people believe in a place called heaven. And so if you believe in it, heaven is sort of like the perfect place that you would want. So I used to ask the kids, what does your heaven look like? What would you want? And so they would tell me, and Noah would say his was like Candyland. Those kids loved it. They're like, it's like Candyland, and you can do whatever you want, and it's perfect weather, And so we'd have those discussions, just very vague.
Okay.
Because I just didn't want them spending the last year and a half of their life worrying about am I going to die?
That makes sense.
And they were still getting treatment, to slow it down. And I just didn't want that to be, I wanted them to be 10, like 9, 8 or 9 and 7, 10 and 8-year-olds worrying about like what they're going to wear for crazy sock day at school.
Just like be kids.
Play dates and be kids. And I didn't want them to be affected by that at all. And so we planned trips and we did great things, and we were able to try an experimental immunotherapy type drug, and it didn't work. And our daughter at that point, it was now summertime, end of summer. And she was like, it was end of August when she got it.
She's 9.
She's 10 now.
She's 10 now.
Almost 10 and a half. And she was just declining. She was now like couldn't really walk very well. And we had to put her on steroids to just kind of calm the brain activities. So her mood, labile moods from the steroid, the long-term steroid use, and the weight gain. And that never bothered her. And she didn't care that she looked different anymore. But she missed that she wasn't able to go back to school because it wasn't safe, and we knew.
Yeah.
And so then
So was her last time in school?
End of third grade.
End of third grade.
And she was supposed to start 4th grade. And she read the book over summer reading that she was supposed to do. And she did the work. And I said, I'll turn it in for you, because
it sounds like she develops like some good friendships during her time.
Yeah, at school she did. She had some great friends.
Yeah.
And we're really fortunate for that. And then I was actually in the hospital with Noah. He was getting his 2nd infusion of this experimental drug. Kalea, her platelets were too low, so they were like, we'll check again next week and see if she can get it. But the doctor came in, and I was actually going to bring it up to her, but she brought it up to me when she came in, and I kind of knew she was going to, and she talked to me about hospice at that point for Kalea. And she said, here in California with hospice, your kid can still be on hospice and still get treatment. It doesn't mean we have to stop everything. So if next week her platelets are great and she can get the infusion, we can still give it to her. But I think with hospice, because we had asked for like a walker or some other equipment. And she said the fastest way to get it, honestly, is for hospice, because hospice will be out there today to meet you. They'll have supplies for you. Like, it's just a much quicker way than through regular ordering it and everything. So I said, that's fine. And 6 days later, she passed. So we got home that day with my son, met the hospice team. She eventually, the pain kept getting worse and worse. We had to put her on. She was on pain meds around the clock. And then she had a couple seizures. And at that point, she like wasn't really waking up very much. And luckily though, she passed at home. And it's funny because she passed at, I think, 12:30 a.m. on September 1st. And that's the start of Childhood Cancer Month.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, this is our daughter. This is so our daughter. She's like right on time. I'm like, yep, I'm going to hold off till this perfect date. So she was home and she passed. And you just don't. They pick up your daughter or your child to take them away. That image, it's like the worst possible image, like, and it was late, it was the middle of the night, and I just kept telling Duncan, like, she's gonna be by herself. She's never been by herself. She's never been by herself, ever. And it was just like, it was crazy. And then we woke up Noah to tell him, to have him say goodbye, And we thought it was like he was gonna be devastated. And I think he was, but I think he was in so much shock, So the next day, he obviously didn't go to school, and he wanted to go down to the park and do farmer's market. So we like did all these like normal things, which is so weird that like your kid dies. And I think you probably will understand. And then you have to go on like a normal day,
stuff.
And like,
it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. But we were just like, whatever Noah wants to do, we're going to do. Like, this is what. And it's weird because then the next day he wanted to go to, he was like, the next time he could go to school, he's like, I want to go to school. And we were like, absolutely, you can go to school. And if at any point you want to come home, you let them know, I'll come pick you up. And my husband went right back to work, and it was kind of like we were just kind of keeping up, like things are kind of normal. And we thought Noah would be like crying every day a lot more, and he didn't quite. And I think part of it was he was in shock and he couldn't quite grasp it. But like
as soon as we let him, we were like, it's okay to cry. Or do you want to watch videos? And we'd start watching videos. And then you could see his face change. And it's like, do you want us to stop watching videos of you and sister? And he'd be like, yes. We would turn it off and he would just cry. And I think he felt more comfortable crying with me. And that's how it was even throughout treatment when they missed each other. One was in the hospital, one was home. My husband's like, no, he's doing really well. He's been fine. And then I would get home and I'd be like, Noah, how are you doing? He would just break down. And I think he just, he needed almost sometimes permission to. And I remember one night, about a week, I don't know how many days after it was after she passed, but we had asked him, do you know what happened to sister? She said, yeah, she went to heaven. And we reiterate it. She's always with us. She's around us. She's watching us all the time. It's just, again, we're the ones that don't get to see her and we're really sad. And then I said, do you know why? What happened to her? Why she had to go to heaven? And he said, is it because of the cancer? And that's not a question you're ready to answer when your child who's saying this has cancer himself and the same type of cancer. And again, we didn't want him thinking, okay, I'm dying too, and this is what's going to happen to me. So I said, her body just didn't react the way you saw how she was changing and stuff. Her body just wasn't reacting the best way to all these medications. And a lot of these side effects she was having were from some of the medications she was on. And I think Kalea's, her body and her mind, she wanted to be a kid. She wanted to be playing. She wanted to not be in pain. She didn't want any of that. And so I think it was her and her body saying, I'd rather be in heaven being a kid again than have to live with all of these side effects and all of these things happening to me. And so that's how we explained it to him. And he, throughout this whole process, the kids were in play therapy through the cancer support community and like pet therapy with the dog there. And so we continued it on with him. So he got to make like a really sweet scrapbook with the therapist there. And then we made one at home too for him. And we talked about sister all the time. And then he actually, 10 days after his sister passed, he fell in the backyard, hit his head.
Oh.
Had a small seizure.
Oh my God.
We took him to CHLA. At that point, they told us that the cancer is still spreading despite getting those experimental drugs. And they said, and he has a small brain bleed. So they're like, we need to keep him. We need to monitor him. We'll do a scan later this evening to see if it stopped. Luckily, the bleed, it was a small bleed. It stopped on its own. There was no interventions needed. And at that point, we were like, let's put him on hospice, which allowed us to just be home more. We were doing, Zoom appointments instead. He was instead of getting his port accessed up at the hospital, he would go to the local CHLA outpatient center and they would draw blood through his arm.
Okay.
And it was so cute. Him and my husband would always go and driving there, they'd be like, a poke in the arm is better than a drive to CHLA. A poke in the arm is better than a drive to CHLA. Because he did not, the arm pokes hurt and it's not good. And the little veins, the port access, we would put lidocaine on. Like they got used to it. It was easy. Didn't really hurt him. But so we could he was able to be at school then all day. He didn't have to get picked up early. We wanted him just to be able live as much normal life. And then by middle of October, he was in a wheelchair going to school because he was having trouble walking. His balance is really off.
And he's 7 at this point?
He's 8 now.
8.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he just, continued to decline. He went to school before Thanksgiving break. And I think after Thanksgiving break, he had to be on like morphine and strong pain meds. And after Thanksgiving break, I was able to take him to school twice just for the recess for a little bit. And he'd sit in his wheelchair in the Gaga pit and he'd throw the ball out and the kids were amazing. And the staff were amazing with him. And then after that, he never got to go back to school. He pretty much was sleeping the whole time and on pain meds. And then he held on. Oh my gosh, he held on so much longer than we thought. Because he probably stopped eating and stopped drinking for like a week. Had nothing. God. And then he ended up eventually passing December 16th of 2022. So a few months after Kalea, he passed away. And I just remember when towards the last few days, I would just whisper to him, like, it's okay if you want to go be a kid with sister. It's okay to go be with sister. Like, you can go be. And when he passed, he had a little smile on his face. And I thought he saw his sister. I think he saw his sister. But I used to promise, I said, and I think I promised them, Daddy and Mommy will be okay down here. I promise you, we'll be okay. You can go be with sister. And I think I promised them that. So I would hold myself to it. Like, it was a way that, like, I never broke a promise to my kids. And so I'm saying this because I can't break this promise to them. And I will be okay. Daddy and I will be okay. I needed to tell myself that. And to make that promise to them so that I would be okay. So we lost both of our kids in 2022 with about 3 months apart from each other. Our life is broken up to, like, before cancer, after cancer, and now without our kids. So now there's, like, 3 parts of our lives, it feels like. So it's just, all I ever wanted to be was a mom. I was sort of like my ultimate, like, I just want to be a mom. And I was lucky. I was enough. I worked part-time and was home most of the time with the kids and got to be involved in everything and help out in their classrooms. I coached Noah's little soccer team, like things like that. And it's like your whole identity and a role all of a sudden is gone. And I felt extremely lost. Like, you know, even though I had a career and I'm a nurse practitioner and I knew I'd go back to work, working was such a small part of who I was and my life. That I still felt very lost. And it's trying to figure out a new life, my husband and I, and figure out just...
How are you managing that?
I don't know.
I know you made a promise to your kids to be okay, but how are you managing this?
I think I'm very grateful for my husband. We grieve very differently. And I will cry, and I got signed up immediately into grief groups, and I clung on to, other grief moms that know what this feels like. And he is much more like private, like doing grief groups, doing things like it doesn't make him feel any better. Even talking about it doesn't necessarily make him feel better. So I think we've allowed ourselves, we support each other in how we want to grieve. He's always there for me if I need,
So even though you grieve differently, you're still able to be there for each
and
other.
we know that we grieve differently, and we allow each other to grieve the way that we need to.
That's kind of something you guys have come up. Like,
yes,
you've worked on that together.
Yes,
so that's good, because that must be kind of hard.
It is hard. So, like, I know sometimes I do feel when I'm talking to him, and I've told him, I'm very, we had a strong relationship before our kids were diagnosed. We were luckily able to even maintain, and I would say even grow our relationship and make it stronger during the whole process. So that, I think, has been key. But I think I'll have these thoughts, or there'll be an anniversary coming up or a special holiday or something, and I feel like I'm spiraling, and I'll talk to him about it. I'm like, stop being so logical. Just sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm a crazy person and you're so logical, Like, can you please just stop with it?
Just be upset, Dan.
Yeah, just be upset, And I think I said something one time, like, I feel like I'm grieving and my whole life is turned upside down, and you're just going on with life like everything's okay. And he's like, that really is hurtful. He's like, because I'm not. We just do it differently. And I was like, well, thank you for telling me that, because sometimes I feel like that, So I think just open communication has been really helpful.
And you're not the only sad mom that's kind of said that. Like,
yeah.
I think that's been like, I think there's other couples that are going through loss and they deal with it so differently. But it's great that you guys are able to communicate and you understand that each other in that. You know?
And so I will cry openly, and he doesn't around me really. I mean, in the beginning he did, but now it's been months since I've really seen him cry. But he tells me, like, he'll go sometimes to the driving range late at night, and he'll come home and he's like, I just put my AirPods on, put my hoodie on, and just cried and hit balls. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you were able to do that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, and he likes to do it by himself. Or sometimes he'll say, oh, I watched videos of the kids and just kind of cried. And I'm like, good, I'm glad you were able to get it out. And yet he also is the one that since the beginning had no problem telling people we'd meet on the golf course or random people like our story and that our kids died. And I don't, and
So he's open about
he's
like,
open.
talking
Yeah.
about
He
it?
talks about it. He's the one. And I would be like, freeze up when people would say, oh, do you have kids? I'd be like, I'd look at him and then he would just take it and he'd say like, actually, we do have 2 kids. And unfortunately, we have a really sad story. And 1 minute little story, he'll tell them that we lost them both to brain cancer. And I'm sitting there like trying to catch my breath,
Yeah.
But
I'm like you.
yeah.
I have so much anxiety about those conversations.
Yeah. And sometimes it comes out easy. Like sometimes I'll just say it. And other times it's like, what am I going to say? I don't know what to say.
That's hard too.
Yeah.
You mentioned the holidays, and I think something that we've discussed is how life is a trigger and everything's a trigger. And we go through basically life just waiting for this next day to come up.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, your random Tuesday is always bad as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of our life is like, okay, now it's going to be, now who knew Valentine's Day was a fucking trigger?
Right, yeah.
Like, so I'm like, oh, it's Valentine's
it's
Day. There's
Valentine's.
hearts everywhere. Like, so, and then Easter, like just these things that you don't necessarily care about, but your kids are part of all these little things.
And it was a big deal to them, right? And so, whether you thought it was a big deal or not, it's like you always made it special for them, I feel like, right? And so there's triggers every day. And it's funny because Noah's birthday was just on January 30th. And I told my husband, I said, not that I miss him more because it's his birthday. It's not that I'm sadder. I said, every day I miss him the same amount and I'm sad the same amount every day. I said, but when there's a birthday or an anniversary or a holiday, it just brings up so many more reminders of like, this is another birthday he's missing. I wonder what he would want for his birthday. I wonder if he'd want a party. There's all these things that you wonder that you'll never know. Like, what would they look like right now? Would he have changed in these 2 years? How much he would have changed? And then it's a reminder of I have to go through this year after year after year. And it's daunting, the thought of it.
It's so daunting.
It's like,
I don't know how we're going to do this.
yeah, right? Like, and I say that all the time. Like,
Yeah.
how am I supposed to do this?
I don't know.
Like, I got through his birthday. Yeah, okay, we survived it. I had a plan in action, but I have to do this now and for March for our daughter. Like,
yes, her birthday's coming up.
like, what the heck? Like, am I going to be able to do it again? And of course, we do it. We get through it. But it's just so many of these dates are just bigger triggers of what we're missing out on.
How do you prepare for those days? Or do you find that you have, like you mentioned, you have a plan? I think you usually have like a plan and a backup plan of what to do.
So for holidays and their birthdays, we try to either get away a little bit, either right before or maybe after. And I try to stay busy leading up to it.
Okay.
Because I feel like sometimes the days leading up and the day after are sometimes even harder than the actual day.
I agree.
And I think because the actual day you set that plan and you're so determined you're going to do this and do this and do this and you're going to honor them and you have all these things set that you just are going through the motion. But it's like the anxiety and the sadness leading up to it is so exhausting. And then the day afterwards, it's like the worst hangover of your entire life, I feel like.
The grief hangover.
It's like grief hangover. It like feels, it's even worse because now all of a sudden it's done that day and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's gone. Like his birthday's done and wasn't here. And I still feel like crap and
Dealing with the aftermath
it's after,
of it.
yeah.
It's hard, yeah, because there's like a buildup because you're like, okay, the birthday's coming up. These are all the things that I have to do. And you're right. We want to spend that day honoring them and doing the right thing. So I do that. I'm like that too. I'm like, this day, we're going to do all these things no matter how fucking bad we feel.
Yeah.
We're doing
it, exactly.
And then, but it's like leading up, it's like all the anxiety to the day, whatever the day may be, the birthday, the holiday. And then the day comes. You're so focused, so you do all the things, and then afterwards, it's like you don't want to get out of bed.
No, you don't. Yeah,
it's so tiring.
It's exhausting.
Yeah,
that's it. I feel like this whole grief thing is exhausting.
It is exhausting. What is something like you've been doing? We talk about in the Sad Moms doing something that makes us feel 1% better. What are some things that you have been doing that make you feel we're never gonna be better. Like we're never gonna be better. We're never
There's
gonna
no
be
cure
healed.
to this.
There's no cure.
It doesn't
But
end.
what is something that like you do in daily life or weekly that makes you feel like 1%? Like 1%.
Walking.
Okay.
I definitely have to get outside. I have to walk. I start pretty much every morning with a walk. And I'll usually do one later on the afternoon. So walking or exercising, that has sort of kind of kept me sane.
on like a day-to-day thing. Like that's like a daily thing.
So exercise,
moving, yeah. Also, I make sure I give myself, my husband could go, keep busy, travel every weekend, like do something, golf, go like all the time. And I think that's his way of distraction. You know, that's his coping mechanism. And I'd like to do that to a point, but I also make sure I allow myself, like I need that time to really sit in it, to talk to my kids, to cry, to look at pictures and just feel it, you know? And it doesn't even have to be like a whole day, but just moments that I let myself, you know, throughout the day have a moment to do that. On a different scale, I think ever since the kids were diagnosed, I kind of got into advocacy, raising awareness, doing things like that for pediatric cancer, pediatric brain tumors. And so I've continued that more so after they passed, because I just felt like
that gives you like a purpose.
It gives me, it gives me sort of a purpose. Like this is sort of now, I went back to work and I'm working some, but like
that's for them.
That's for that, you know, and it's I needed a new purpose. Like, and I felt like I don't have my kids here with me anymore, but I still want to be their mom in some sort of way. So how can I be their mom in a different kind of way? And so it's like honoring them, making sure like their story, their life didn't just end the day that they took their last breath. Like that their life matters, it continues to matter, that they are loved, that people remember them. And so I share our story with, you know, some of the foundations I've been involved with. We raise money for pediatric brain tumor research. There's a foundation that actually we've become so close to the people that started that foundation that they are like, would you like to have a grant in your family's name? So we have what's called the FLAG grant, Fight Like the Averys grant, FLAG. And so it goes specifically towards pediatric brain tumor. And so I get to be a part of that. And
I love that.
And it's just a way to make sure that like people remember our kids, that I am still honoring them in some way, and that their life matters.
When you look back on your time in the hospitals, is there ever a time you think that you guys would just be laughing and it would be hysterical, even though everything was so difficult? You're in the hospital, they both are in chemo.
Yeah.
Is there any time you think back and are like, oh my God, we were laughing during this like hellhole?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So my favorite holiday, or my favorite Christmas that we've ever had, was Christmas of 2018. We were in the hospital. Noah we knew he was going to be there for his third and final round of the stem cell round. And Kalea had gotten chemo. It was her B cycle. So we knew she always got like a fever and would have to be admitted. So I was like, I hope she gets a fever soon. Like, I think she's going to be admitted. She's going to be getting a fever, and she's going to be admitted at the same time over Christmas. So we'll all be together. Sure enough, it's like, I think it might have been Christmas Eve. Duncan calls me and he's like, she has a fever. I'm like, she's like, I already called the ER. They know we're coming.
Okay.
We're on our way. And I was like, we were excited. Ecstatic. Because, you know, it's like, I just wanted to wake up on Christmas morning with both my kids.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted that. And so they each had they were in their own hospital rooms, but it was just, there were so many great memories like that where they'd walk down with the pole, their IV attached, their chemo attached, and they'd walk into the room and we'd spin together. We'd be together. And sometimes they would even sleep together in the same room. And we used to joke because the nurses were like, we're keeping you nurses on your toes because you have to make sure it's the right patient you've got, because you got two little bald-headed kids, you know? Yeah. But that Christmas, I remember we got them a karaoke microphone set type of thing, and you could play the music through your phone. It would come and play off the microphone, and then you could sing along with it. And none of us are musically inclined in my family. None of us have great voices. But you could just hear us down the hall, like, who is that screaming in the microphone? And, 6 and 4-year-old. And my son had the loudest voice. So they would just be singing, and we're like, oh my gosh, they're going to kick us out. And we had this like drone that you could use. So we had drones flying. We had the music going. We'd have whenever the nurses would come in, you're like, okay, you got to sing us a song, sing a song with us. Yeah. And so it was just like, that's my favorite Christmas.
I love
And
that
we were in the
memory.
hospital. Like, we were in the hospital, but I'm like, as long as we were together, I don't care where the fuck we are.
Yeah.
We are together and we're waking up. And so,
You had each other.
yeah.
Yeah. What's the hardest part right now? As far as like, I don't know. For me, dealing with society is difficult for me.
Yeah.
And dealing with people and talking to people and having to just, I don't know. I think I'm having a hard time finding purpose.
Yeah.
So what is the hardest thing for you right now?
Oh gosh. This question has been posed in some of the grief groups I'm into. And it's so hard because it feels like everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Like everything is hard. I think, I mean, there's that, yes, the missing, I miss being a mom. I'm like the day-to-day being a mom. The getting them up ready for school, packing lunches, you know, all those things that like we hate doing, that are just like adds to the list of things that you have to do as a mom or that you do as a parent. But I miss that, you know, I miss that day to day. I miss even like my daughter is going to be turning 13. And I'm like, gosh, I wish I could just see her roll her eyes at me. I wish I miss every day. I'd get probably a daily eye roll. And she'd now be almost 13. I'm sure I'd be getting them all the time. And I miss that. I miss, you know, I wish I could have that.
All the things I feel like other parents are complaining about are the things that we are like craving.
Like I would take all of that, you know? So it's missing them and missing that day to day, just feeling like I'm a mom. That's really hard. And it's just the exhaustion of it. It's so tiring because I feel like you fake it till you make it. You know, you just got to go through life like I'm okay.
I feel like we're constantly faking it, or we constantly have the mask on.
Yeah.
Right? And then I have the mask on all day, and then I come home and take it off, and I'm like,
yeah,
fuck this.
Like it still sucks. Like it's still impossibly hard, you know? And I think there's that fear that like people just will forget your kids. And then they think their life has moved on, that we should move on, that like everything, like you look great. So she must be doing great.
I've had somebody tell me that too. Like, well, you look great. I'm like, okay, my kid's still dead, even though I look great. Like, thanks, I guess. I don't know.
Like just because I'm standing doesn't mean like I'm so much better. I don't feel any better than I did a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah. And I feel like people need us to be okay, if that makes any sense. I feel like people need us so badly to just be okay.
Yeah.
Even though we're really not.
Yeah, and we're never going to be. It's like we just learn how to live with this. Figure out a way that we can live with this, but like it never gets better.
No, it never gets better. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Continuing to not move on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have the right word for it.
Yeah. We'll never move on. We're never going to move on from our children.
No. Move forward? I don't even like
not
the word
even
move forward either. Sometimes I can't think of the right words because I'm like, that's not the right
I
phrase.
just feel like it's getting used to that the whole rest of the world is moving forward. And we're still kind of like frozen in that time when we lost our child. Like that's kind of when, you know? And just kind of accepting like everything else keeps moving on.
Yeah.
And
I'm never going to move on.
And it really sucks and it's really hard. But like I'm still here. I'm going to be, you know, it's still going to be 2022. And I'm going to have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. Even though I tell people like, oh yeah, now my son just turned 11 and my daughter's going to be 13.
Yeah.
Like
I do that too. I'll
know?
say the age that, you know, because Rylan turned 10 in October. So he also died in December of 2022. So I feel like December of 22 is just like
the worst.
Just where I'm at.
Yeah.
Forever.
And that's where it's going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. So yeah, I'll always say that the age that I still talk about him in present tense. So a lot of people were like, oh, he were, whatever. And I'm like, no, is like still is. Like,
Yeah.
even though like physically he's not here, like he still is those things, you know?
Yeah.
And I think people get uncomfortable with that too.
yeah.
But whatever.
I mean, I think, and look, it is an uncomfortable topic. Like, and I don't know if I never lost my children, I don't know how I would be as a friend, as a family member, of helping someone cope with losing a child. Like, I don't know if I would have done or said everything that I now knowing would want to be said to me or done. But it's very uncomfortable. No one wants to really touch it because it's so like they don't want to even imagine that it's possible.
Right.
And they don't want to make you feel worse. And
we always feel bad.
we always feel bad. We're always sad. We're always and I'm like, no, please talk about my kid. Please share the memories. Please send pictures when you think of my kids. You know, it like that makes me feel better.
What are some things that you have found helpful that other people have done? And what are some things that you have found either feel hurtful or feel bad?
Yeah. So I don't think anyone has ever purposely done anything to be hurtful. I find what has been really helpful is just either talking about my kids, remembering them, or acknowledging. It doesn't even have to be right on that day. Like, for instance, it's Christmas or whatever, you know, when you're at a family together. Like, I don't need something right then and there being like, I know it's really hard for you today, or make a big thing about it. But you could even text me ahead of time or acknowledge that, hey, I know Christmas is tomorrow and it's going to be really hard. And I have a cousin who is amazing about that. She'll send me things, or she's like, wearing this to honor your kids, or on their birthdays, like, what do they love to do? And she'll put up their favorite snacks or food out, you know? And just little things like that mean the most, I think. When they just acknowledge, like, it's your kid's birthday, or it's their death anniversary. And I have some friends that do that too, that just, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be just a text that, like, I'm thinking of you.
Yeah. I think people, like, don't even want to do that. I think that's definitely something, like, acknowledging our truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, seeing us, you know?
Like, I don't need on my birthday. I hate when people are like, happy birthday. Hope you have a great day.
No.
And I'm like, excuse me, I'm having a birthday and my 2 kids are dead. Do you think it's really going to be a great day?
It's not a great day.
It's not a great day. Like, Merry Christmas. And I'm like, how about Merry Christmas? I know today is probably really hard.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Like, that I'll take. I don't want, like, Merry Christmas, happy birthday, you know, all this, like, no.
I agree with you on that. Because when people send me things like that, I'm like, you just don't get it, like, or you don't see me, like.
Yeah.
But I agree. It's like, it's your birthday. This must just be really hard. It's Christmas.
Yeah.
You're celebrating Christmas with your kids. I'm so sorry.
Just acknowledge the elephant in the room. That, like, I have no intention to ever really celebrate my birthday.
Me
you know,
either.
or to acknowledge it, because my kids aren't here. What's the point?
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be a happy birthday. And I think, could I have a good day that day? Could something make me laugh? Yes. Could I do something that makes me smile? Absolutely. But doesn't mean that I want to acknowledge that it's my birthday because my kids aren't here. And that's what I choose, my husband and I choose to do our birthdays. We don't really, but I just don't like the people just sort of don't acknowledge.
And what are some unintentional things people have done that have just been like, I can't believe that person just said that or did that?
Saying Merry Christmas to me and hugging me without, like.
So on the same kind of thing.
Stuff like that. Just like, oh my gosh, no, it's not a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, just because I'm here doesn't mean, I'm here because I know my kids would want me to be here and they would want, But I think certain things that people say, like, they're in a better place. They're not suffering anymore. And I'm like, look, I believe me, to see your kids suffer is horrible, to have them in pain, but they were on pain medication, took away the pain.
Yeah.
Just keep them on pain medication, keep them here with me, like, that's how I think.
Yeah. No matter what was happening with our kids in the time when they died, we're always going to want them here over being somewhere else.
Yeah. Like, I don't need to be told that. I also have had people who I don't even know is usually where it comes from. Like, are you going to have more kids?
Oh,
I've been told you guys are young enough. You guys, don't give up. You guys should have another kid. And I'm like, first off, you don't know my husband and our like history, medical history, anything along those lines, where we are mentally, emotionally, physically.
And even if you were going to have more, if you were like, new kids don't replace your kids that die. Like, it's like almost like, okay, well, you can have other kids and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, no.
It's like, no, not at all.
No.
It's a whole nother layer of complication having another child, bringing another child in after doing this. But it's like, no, we're my husband and I, we're not having more children, and it's none of your business.
No. If you can share with us, how would you want your kids to be remembered?
I want them to be remembered as the little superheroes that they were. Their amazing spirit, for their kindness, because they were they were kind, sweet kids. For their strength. And I want them, like, I feel like my kids, we called them, after they passed, I was like, they were like little unicorns. It's like, you don't get siblings that don't fight. You don't get siblings,
No.
They were these kids that they may not like what that was going on with them. They may not be happy that they were at the hospital, but they never took it out on any of the nurses or doctors. It was, no, thank you, please, thank you. It was just, and they always said things like, for the holidays, I want to be with my family. Like, our cousin's coming, And I almost feel like they knew what mattered in life. They already at a very young age figured out life.
Like old souls?
I felt like they were old souls. They figured out life. Like, they had every excuse in the world to not have to do their homework, to not have to finish their schoolwork. But they're like, no, we got to finish it. It's like they understood what it meant to work hard, to not give up, to be kind to others, to be accepting of others, to, despite the shittiest of circumstances, I'm still going to have a best day ever, and I'm still going to have a high every single day and be able to name one good thing. And even though I don't want to be going to the hospital, what is one good thing we can look forward to? They were able to say what one thing they were looking forward to. And it's like they figured out life where most people spend decades trying to figure out life, and they had it figured out at the age of 10 and 8. And it's like, that's just who they were, that they were these little magical unicorns, and I want people to remember them like that, and I think my sister said it best. She's like, they were just too good for us mere mortals down here on earth. And I said, exactly. That's so true.
Yeah. And I always think about them because you've told me that their favorite thing was to celebrate the national
days.
National Donut Day or whatever.
Yesterday was National Frozen Yogurt Day.
Oh,
so my husband and I went, and we originally went to Yogurtland because it was buy one, get one free. But the line was like outside, around, down. It was going to be forever. So we're like, we went to another frozen yogurt place, but we were still going to get frozen yogurt for the kids. But yes.
So I do think of every time, because there's always all these random national days.
Yes.
So I'll see them and I will always think of them when I
Yes.
see that. And it brings a smile to my face to think of them and think of those national days.
Thank
you
you
for being here with me today. I know this wasn't easy, and I appreciate your time and your heart and being so honest and open.
Well, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you, and appreciate you having this platform for us sad moms.
Yeah.
To be able to just kind of lay it all out there.
We need each other.
We do.
I think that's what I realize is that I need you guys so much, because it's been so hard. And like you said, it's just, it's impossible to get through each day. So I know that we have our, other sad moms who I can just be like, oh, fuck this day.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all I have to say. I don't even have to say anything else from there.
And we all are, we get you.
Yeah. We just understand each other.
Or just like the irrational thoughts or things that cross our mind or things that we say. Like, my husband doesn't quite get it. So I'm like, I'm just going to text my sad moms instead, or I'll just say it to them when I see them, because one of you guys, if not all of you, have thought it, said something similar, or felt something similar, while my husband is just so logical and rational.
Right.
It's like, no,
we can't deal
and
with that sometimes.
I don't need that. No.
And then before we go today, you did mention that you've worked with some foundations and pediatric cancer organizations. Can you shout some of those out today?
Yes. So the Uncle Corey Foundation is a local-based small foundation that raises money for brain tumor research. And through them, the Uncle Corey Foundation, we have the FLAG grant, which is given now. We've given it 2 years. This will be our third grant that we'll give this year.
And it's
earlier
Uncle
this
Corey
year.
with the K?
With a K, yes.
Okay. And that's where people can donate?
And they can donate through the Uncle Corey Foundation. And on their website, there's even a specific link that you can go to if you want to donate directly to the FLAG grant.
Okay.
Because the more money we get specifically towards the FLAG grant, then we could potentially also, we've given renewal grants to one of our researchers. We've been able to do it. So that's amazing. And then also through the Ian's Friends Foundation, they are based out of Atlanta, but we met a couple and their daughter going through radiation the same time Kalea was back in 2018. And they got involved with them, and they were so moved and impacted by them that they started a West Coast chapter, the Ian's Friends Foundation. Okay. It was started by just a husband and wife, mom and dad, whose son was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. Okay. He's thriving and doing well, and he's in college, but they just know that outcomes aren't always like that, and too many children are dying from brain tumors. So they started it. It's still, it's run out of their kitchen in their home in Atlanta. Okay. And now it's the couple here, the Meller family started in their home here in LA. And so we've supported them a lot too, the Ian's Friends Foundation.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of The Sad Moms. Help us spread awareness about grief and grow our community by writing an Apple review, rating us on Spotify, subscribing on YouTube, and sharing with as many people as you can. Until next time, have a day.